to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing The Endless. Spoiler alert, Joe, it has an ending. It's not, I guess we can talk about what that actually means, but there you go.
I'm still watching it.
I'll be your host for this evening. That's the twist, it never ends. Joining me tonight, first up, founding member of the new class. Please welcome Sophie to the show.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's been a long time.
Has it? I thought you were on recently.
Feels like it has.
Huh.
Been a while.
Next up on the show from Indiana, please welcome Casey. You're muted, bro. And last up, not totally last, but we'll get to that in a second. He drinks beer. He lives in Chicago. His name is Joe.
I am there right now, and I am doing that right now.
And since we're all stuck in our own time loop, Mark is going to be late again.
Ooh.
So there you go. So you'll hear him jump in at some point.
You can set your watch to Mark being late.
Casey, I thought of you about an hour ago because I was running and was coming up behind a dude, and he pulled out his vapor machine. And did what I believe the kids refer to as blow a sick cloud that I had to run through. And
was he running too?
No, he was decidedly not running. And I could only describe the flavor smell combo as like disgusting bubblegum.
Oh yeah.
And it was like
That's a pretty popular flavor, I think.
Do you know when
probably
you
really is a juice flavor.
Do you remember when you were like a kid and you go to the dentist and they were like, here, you need to get your fluoride at the end. Yeah. And they're like, do you want mint or do you want bubblegum? And you picked bubblegum because you're not a serial killer. But it's like that really like sickly sweet bubblegum flavor. And then it was disgusting. That's what that was like. It brought back like a lifetime of childhood dentist memories and then I almost vomited. So that was great.
Nice.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool.
Vaping. Well, you know what I also was doing, Joe? I was listening to Limp Bizkit.
Oh, as you always should.
I forgot there was a Rollin' remix with Redman and Method Man.
I forgot about that as well until you mentioned it, and I think I've only listened to it a couple times.
It's great.
I might correct that.
It's great.
Very shortly.
Do you guys know, I'm sure that you do, that Limp Bizkit did the Mission Impossible theme song for the second Mission Impossible movie?
Yeah, it was...
Sophie, come on!
I think it was because it was on their album. That album that came out around then, it was just on it.
That is stellar.
It is also the theme music for just about every like top 40 station traffic report in the afternoon. They use that I don't know. It's a thing. Although I don't think there's any actual words in there. Fred hung back home on that one.
No, there's a verse. There's a couple of verses.
Is there?
Yeah, totally. Come on, Joe.
I think I've only heard
How is it
the
you
version in the movie.
I'm actually like very disappointed that you don't know the verses.
Maybe I scrubbed it from my head. That was towards the decline of my Limp Bizkit.
The good comes the bad, the bad comes the good. It's the whole thing.
I'll look into this after too.
There you go. Sophie, as a founding member of the new class here, you participated in an event this weekend we wanted to talk about briefly. You watched the first Purge as part of a tweet with BGH.
We sure did.
Had you seen it before?
I had seen it. So yeah, I've seen all the Purge movies except I have not yet seen the new movie, The First Purge, which I cannot express to you how confusing that naming scheme is when trying to explain to people which Purge movie we're watching for Tweet with BGH.
Oh god! Even when I was trying to post like the event, I had to keep asking Sophie, like, "Are you watching the first one or
the first one?"
It's like
first one.
It's like the Xbox One.
Yeah. So we had a pretty good turnout. I think Casey mentioned earlier when we were pre-show that my mom, who famously does not like anything with any tension whatsoever, has started watching the movies that we do for Tweet with BGH and just texting my brother and I while she watches them.
That's great.
But she has a Twitter now. My brother set up a Twitter account for her. So when I was growing up and she couldn't watch anything that was tense, I mean, I'm talking, she used to love the show 24, but she had to leave the room repeatedly, and she would go into the adjoining kitchen and quote unquote make tea, which usually just meant stand in the kitchen and pace around and be uncomfortable.
And just breathe
So-
heavy for a while.
Yeah, and so my brother made her Twitter handle going to make tea, and literally the only thing that she tweeted the entire movie was "I'm going to make tea."
I love it.
That's
So
great.
we had a great time. I talked to her afterwards, and she said she had some reservations because she said that she's getting a little bit better with the scary stuff, but she doesn't like it when nice people die.
Mm.
So
I mean, who does?
she yeah, so she said that she did okay, but she was too scared to tweet. So we'll see how she does in the second Purge movie, which we will be handling sometime in August.
Great.
So yeah, come for the jokes and stay for my mom with a Twitter account.
Oh my God! Your mom's Twitter picture is just Joaquin Phoenix with a tinfoil pointy hat from
Oh
what
yeah,
is this?
from Signs.
Signs, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's the only horror movie that she had ever seen with us, and we watched it while my stepdad was stationed in Kuwait when I was in middle school.
Science was
And she got really
scary.
scared and wanted to go make tea at some point, and my stepbrother, she was like sitting on the floor in front of my stepbrother who was on the couch, and he physically just like put his hands on her shoulders and made her stay and watch the movie.
You can do this.
I love this. I'm going to make tea, July 22nd. I would love it if your mom only tweeted when she was going to make tea.
I do really like. I really like that that's become a family euphemism. I like that.
Well, you just wait; it's going to be trending on Twitter pretty soon.
But yeah, the
so.
original Purge is funny, right? Because like I remember liking it, but also I saw it once for the show, and after years and years of new movies and my views changing on movies, I don't know. I don't know how it would be to go back and visit it. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it ages okay.
Lena Headey though, who's great,
Yeah.
just fantastic.
Ethan Hawke has his moments too. So
Oh man, I don't
Oh, I forgot he's a dad. That's right. Ethan Hawke
Yeah.
is the bougie security system salesman.
Yeah.
He is. He's just real cynical.
What I realized from
There's-
looking at
yeah.
pictures from that movie was that literally like the rich dandy guy who's like hunting someone down and comes to the front door, he has a mask on that makes him look like Schnars.
Mm. And then when he takes it off, still looks like Schnars.
Like the mask is like somebody said, "Hey, look at this dude," and they make a parody of him if he was a rich murderer, and they made that into a plastic mask.
yeah. Just,
Well, and if
filled
I
up-
remember correctly, we learned during this that so Spencer had tweeted while we were watching that guy, his name on IMDb, his character doesn't have a name. He's just called Polite Leader.
Hmm,
And I would argue he's not all that polite.
that's fair.
I mean, he does come to the house and he's like, "Look, I'm gonna give you a half an hour or whatever."
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then-
Doesn't he knock and tell him like basically, "Give me the dude. We're not interested in you."
I mean, I suppose he asks nicely.
He's polite to someone, not everyone.
As polite as you can be during the purge.
Yeah, I mean, he's only got a limited time to do his shit.
I would say my biggest problem with that, the first one, is there's no party in the USA.
Party. There's no party, fake party in the USA with Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, no Christmas lights.
Also this week, they the people behind the new Purge, the new original first Purge, is they jacked my Purge Palace idea, Joe, at the San Diego Comic-Con. They dressed up a storefront to be called what I would argue is the worst name of Purge City, which I get at Party City, like that's okay, but
I mean, they're obviously listeners, and they obviously know what they've done.
yeah,
Um,
no, I agree.
So, you know, we're not mad. We're just disappointed.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, guys. Like, we got stickers. You could have put a sticker maybe in the corner, given some sort of credit.
You know, it's okay because they still can't beat my my on the spot made up commercial for a bootleg lawyer who helps you with your purge related needs.
yeah, that was pretty good. That was a classic moment, Eric. I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jim Troring. Yeah, so there you go. next week. So we bumped Unfriended this week. Unfriended dark web. Do you guys know about this dark web? It's where it's dark and there's drugs. And
It's
stuff.
where you get babies, right?
Oh boy.
Probably.
So Jesus, that threw me. So we're gonna try to do it next week, but it's gonna depend on Mark and I because we're both gonna be out of town. We'll see. If not, we'll hit up the old video hopper, Joe.
Oh, hey, the video hopper.
So there you go. All right, guys. Joe,
Oh, hi.
why don't you tell me what we are drinking tonight?
Beer guts.
Oh man, the endless. Excuse me, just talking through a belch there. Where to begin with how to explain this movie? I guess all you need to know, it's a pair of brothers who are going back to revisit their time with a cult that they partook in, and that cult, they make some beer. And the name of the little camp that they're living on is called Arcadia. Did they just call it like Arcadia Camp or something along those lines? But anyway, I picked a beer from the fine folks at Arcadia Brewing Company. They're over there in Michigan, if memory serves me. And no particular beer or the beer itself, I don't know if it particularly ties in the movie, but I've started to see all kinds of spooky time, fall time, Halloween events pop up, so I'm getting real excited for pumpkin beers. So I picked their Jawjacker Ale, which is their spiced fall time offering. I guess you could call it a pumpkin ale, but I think I've talked about this before. They don't actually use pumpkin in the brewing process. It's really more the spices. So like allspice, cinnamon, I'm sure a handful of others they use this one. It's this one's super drinkable, like very sort of light and smooth. A lot of pumpkin beers when they come out are, pretty overpowering as far as the spices go, but I think this one's pretty mellowed out, and you can have a few without feeling like you just ate a whole pumpkin pie.
It's mellowed out, man.
Just mellow, man. Comes at a 6% alcohol, which is, it's a decent amount. But on those crisp fall days, and they're coming up, kids.
I know.
It's good for sitting out by the fire and enjoying yourself. ArcadiaAles.com is their website, and I don't know if I mentioned, but Battle Creek, Michigan is where they're from, home of the fine Kellogg's Corporation. If you want to take a trip and see how cornflakes and beer get made, head to Battle Creek, Michigan.
Love it.
Yeah, there you go.
Michigan.
Pure Michigan. Do you guys get the Pure Michigan commercials that Tim Allen narrates out your way? I'm sure you do, Casey.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
That's
we do
what,
here.
That's what I never realized until I moved somewhere else, was that every region gets their own specific tourism commercials.
Yeah.
So when I lived in Florida, we would get commercials for the Alabama coast. Because I guess if you live in Florida, you're like, well, I already live in Florida. Let's go to Alabama because it'll cost $5.
Yeah. Well, it's like that sort of day trip commercial. I have not seen a commercial for the beautiful Mount Airy Lodge in probably 15 years, and that makes me sad, Eric. And I'm
Mount
sure you.
Airy Lodge? I don't remember that.
You don't remember those when we were a kid? It's in the Poconos. The beautiful Mount Airy Lodge.
No, I just think of the water parks and the theme parks.
Oh, Water Slide World.
Yeah.
The one I always go back and literally I watch this on YouTube probably once a month is the Lullaby of Broadway. Do you remember that one?
No.
And in the center of it all is the Milford Plaza. It was this hotel. I think it's still there in New York City. That we used to always get commercials. If you're gonna go down and see a Broadway show, you stay at the Milford Plaza.
Wow.
It's the lullaby of all Broadway.
I mean, I'm sure this exists, but I could go on YouTube and just listen to hours of regional bootleg 80s attraction commercials.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so great. The Water Slide World commercial.
It's the #1 family
Classic.
friendly. All right, guys. It is time to talk about The Endless.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big breaking TV. From the prime time, bitch.
Main feature.
Oh, we're
Ooh.
back. Here we are.
I feel like you cut off a little bit there.
Sophie, Sophie, you know a little bit about these filmmakers, right?
Yes, I do.
You want to give me the quick synopsis of who these dudes are?
Sure. So, if I remember correctly, it's Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Yes, that is right. So, they are a duo that write and direct films together. Back in 2012, they did a little movie called Resolution, which none of you have seen. Is that right?
Correct.
So Resolution connects to this movie pretty significantly. We can talk about that once we get into the Endless, but it's a very, small, contained little indie movie with a super, super small cast. You all might have seen their other film, though. They did a movie in 2014 called Spring, about a guy who goes to Italy and falls in love with this young woman who's got some weird monster stuff going on.
Yeah,
Is that
so
ringing a bell for anybody?
we did a show
Yeah.
on Spring.
We sure
Okay,
did.
that's what I thought.
That wasn't the one with Rose Leslie, though, right?
No, that's different. That's
I think it was Leslie Rose was in that one.
So I have been aware of these guys' work for a little while. I am not a fan of Resolution at all, but Spring I really, really like. I think it came in pretty high on my top 10 for that year. So I was sort of middling coming into The Endless. And like I said, we can sort of talk about how it connects back to Resolution, but I think that watching The Endless actually makes me appreciate Resolution a little bit more.
okay.
But yeah, they seem to be like pretty good buds that do mostly good stuff, and they seem to have like a pretty small crew that they like to work with and on all their stuff, which is kind of cool.
Great. Thank you. That was better than Schnars would have done, I assure you.
Oh, yeah. I think we all like Spring, if I remember right. I think we were
I
fans.
think I was the lone dissenter on Spring, if I
No.
Oh, you didn't like it?
if I
It's
seem
so
to remember
good.
correctly. I think I like parts of it,
Mm.
but there you go.
I like
Um,
romance. That's just me, though. I mean, I'm
just
a
a
sucker
rom-
for romance.
I'm a romantical
And it's
guy,
got
you know.
great creature design. Like I feel like a lot of stuff that comes out now that tries to do monsters does a terrible job, and I thought Spring
I
didn't
don't-
show you a lot, but what they showed you looked really cool.
I'll be honest, I don't remember much about Spring, but when I think of it, the first thing that comes to my mind is it was too long, and I don't know why. That's how I feel. That's how we are. Anyway, so The Endless is so it's these two dudes, right, who star in this.
Yes, they play the brothers.
Right, so they're bros, okay? There's an older bro and a younger bro, and they are cleaning bros. They clean stuff. And we know their lives are depressing because they eat ramen noodles. That's what the movie tells us.
Oh, yeah.
We find out that they were both as children in a cult, basically like a cult that lives on a compound together. And by the way, I'm just going to drop a spoiler warning because it's hard to talk about this movie at all, I feel like, without getting into the nitty gritty of what's going on. So there will be spoilers. Consider yourself warned. So eventually we kind of learned that the older brother helped the younger brother and himself escape. And they've always kind of been ostracized and shunned because they were, it's like they're mole people, basically. Right?
Mm.
From Kimmy Schmidt. They just had trouble making things work. They can't relate to anybody else, so they just sort of are there for each other. They live together, they work together, all this stuff. But the younger brother's been having trouble. Because he was little when he was on there in the cult, it's like he sort of has rose-colored memories of it, and he feels this longing to go back. So pretty early on, the older brother basically is like, all right, if we go back, will you leave me the F alone? Like, will you feel better if we go back and just kind of get this out of your system? So they decide to go back. We meet the leader of the cult, handsome SOB, got a sweet dad sweater. And
You thought the leader was more handsome than the older brother?
no, the older brother's super handsome too, but I like the leader's vibe. I
Alright,
think it
good.
was mostly the sweater and the 5 o'clock shadow that I enjoyed.
I like his vibe. He just gave off a good aura.
Yeah, I just liked him, man. That's part of my issue with this thing is the cult seems great.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I guess that's kind of the point in the end, but like, anyway, we'll get to that. So anyway, they make their own food, they make their own beer, they're like self-sustaining, but the brother's just really got this chip on his shoulder. He has these bad memories that he keeps vaguely alluding to. The younger brother, meanwhile, immediately is just like into this. There's a chick there that he thinks is hot, and they're talking, and he's like, I don't know, this seems pretty good to me. I haven't talked to a girl in 20 years, and now I'm like holding hands with this lady. So that's what, as they're there and they decide to stay another day, which again seems like a great idea, the mystery of what's going on there begins to unravel, and they start discovering um, maybe not sinister. Let's call them like a cosmically troublesome things happening in and around this area that this cult is living in. And things kind of escalate from there and slowly blow up until the movie ends. That's about where we are.
If you don't go on for another 20 minutes, this show is going to be like...
That's okay.
Yeah,
We'll figure it
about
out.
10 minutes long.
So let's talk about it. Sophie, why don't you kick us off? What did you think about this movie?
So I saw this movie a couple of months ago in a little indie theater here in Kansas City. I went back through and kind of did a quick skim through rewatch today just to make sure I was caught up with y'all. I liked this movie. Like I said, I think for me, I benefited from having the previous relationship with these directors and their work. So because I really shouldn't undersell it. I really did not like Resolution, their first movie, at all. I was so angry when the movie was over. And it's kind of a point of contention because my boyfriend really liked it and still thinks of it very fondly. So I loved Spring, but I also had this awareness that they could do things that I found really uninteresting. So I sort of went in with very middling expectations, which I think was helpful. And I think that bringing the characters from Resolution back into this movie sort of even further kind of helped rose color my experience. But I think that this movie does a lot of things really well. It's absolutely not a perfect film, but I think tonally they're able to kind of build this weird unsettling tension and maintain it for most of the movie. And I think we talked a lot over email that this movie has some great weird set pieces that we can get into. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think there are certainly things that you can talk about that could have been done better, but overall I think this is a pretty solid little indie film.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Sophie. I have not seen Resolution. I really liked Spring. I remember it may have even made my year-end list. And I think we'll probably spend a lot of time talking about how confusing this movie is, or kind of like plot holes that there are. If somebody wants to finish their manuscript or whatever they're typing right now, they can just go through that. But despite some of the flaws that we'll probably go through, I really thought this was an interesting story. I thought the two main characters, especially the older brother, were like really well played. There's obviously some weird things that they do or weird decisions that they make that we'll go through, but I mean, overall, like, I thought it was an interesting idea that we haven't really seen in a while. It reminded me of this movie, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll try and track it down while we're talking, but it was like this time travel movie that kind of went through the logistics of what time travel would be and like, how you would actually do it. I'll find it while we're talking, but like it felt very sort of, there's this weird thing happening, but it felt very real. While it was happening, like you could actually go out in the desert and like this kind of crazy stuff would actually start happening. So I really like kind of appreciated that they went that far. There's even some like pretty funny moments in this, which sounds, strange to talk about, but like towards the end where we kind of get into the older brother trying to figure out like what's actually going on here. There's actually some like comical parts to it, which I appreciated. And it's rare when we do these movies. Like every week, I think all of us are trying to kind of squeeze a movie in before we record. This is probably the first one in a while that I've sat down and watched from like start to finish without having to like stop and do something else in between. And despite like its hour 52, running time, like it kept me pretty entertained for most of it. So I was a fan for the most part.
Casey.
Yeah, so going into this, I know we talked about seeing the movie, their previous movie before. I had that confused with Honeymoon is the movie I was thinking of. But now that you guys have straightened that out, I do remember Spring 2. I remember being impressed by some of the kind of weird cosmic stuff they had going towards the end of that one. And that's what I had hopes for going into this movie. And you know what? We got it. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It was probably a little touch too long. It probably could have been a little bit shorter, and it wasn't perfect by any means, but I really kind of liked the story they were going for, the way it was set up, a lot of the unknown and the mystery behind it, and just kind of leaving you crazy. I would have thought it was cool that it was a little Lovecraftian and everything if they hadn't started the movie with the big Lovecraft quotes so they could say, hey, we're being Lovecraftian here, but That's personal taste, I guess.
There's
Probably my
there's
hipster-
another reference too when they're around the fire and the one like pretentious dude is like, well, Lovecraft really touched on these ideas when he like, and then the conversation like trails off
Yeah,
into the background.
the magician guy.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna be the dissenting voice on this one, and it's like now I can't tell if it's being amplified because no one else agrees with me or not. But here we are. So I think that this is a super. I like what this movie's trying to do. Like I think it's really ambitious storytelling that in the end, I think unfortunately the script and the directing are just like not up to. And I think specifically, the more I think about it, I just think this is like a really sloppy at times kind of sort of ungraceful, like badly written script. And you realize that once you get to the end, because actually like the first half of the movie, I agree with Joe that like there's moments of great, you want to know what's going on, right? You want to know like, oh wow, there's all these like great weird things happening. Like, why is this guy writing an equation on the board? What happened with these guys when they left the cult? Why is it such like a what's the weird thing going on there? Like, what is the phenomenon all about? What is like the guy in the 1800s tent and all this shit? And then it's like at some point in the movie you just kind of go like, oh, like they don't, not only do they not have an answer, but they're not going to give me one. And I just don't think like, I think that sometimes movies cannot give you an answer and still feel satisfying. But I didn't feel that way about this because it just is not done very gracefully, in my opinion. I do think there's like interesting, like Sophie said, there's some really fun set pieces. There's this weird humor injected in, which oddly enough, I think is great and like breaks up the movie. Like, I think especially the dude who wants the gun, he comes in. I mean, he's sort of teased earlier. That's like one of the few things that sort of pays off, even though we don't really learn much about him. But he like comes in at a point in the script where they need that dude, because at that point we've just been seeing the same kind of pensive stares and like non-answers for over an hour, and that dude comes in and just gives the script like a blast of energy, and then he goes and sees the other two dudes who I think just like further that even more. Unfortunately, I just think the ending is real flat for me. It doesn't really come together. 2 weeks in a row where we end on, spoiler alert, ominous cloud of dust that someone's driving away from, which I think we should just like put a moratorium on that, because if the last 2 weeks have proven anything to me, it's that shit, it doesn't work if that's all you got is like a cloud. But yeah, it's weird. I don't hate this movie at all. I just feel like you guys are giving the script like, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a pass or something. It's like very, I don't know, it's awkward and ham-fisted a lot, right? Like the way that the exposition especially is hammered in is just like the older brother saying stuff or the younger brother spouting the stuff. You're just like, what? You wouldn't say that. You're saying that because it's a movie and I need that piece of information. You know what I mean? It feels awkward at times.
See, I'd argue that though, because like I'd go back to Lovecraft, because I mean he's kind of the guy that started it all, but then there's this whole cosmic horror thing that Lovecraft started, and that's kind of the tail of the tape for those kind of stories. They're ambiguous endings left open because the whole idea is there's the people in the story discover there's some greater, higher power that they know nothing about that's looming out there, and they don't know where it's from, they don't know what it is, they don't know what it can do. And this kind of fits right in there. But at the same time, I mean, I could see it's not for everybody, and I could see why you feel unsatisfied from it, especially if you haven't read a lot of those kind of stories.
But you also,
that it's expected to end like that.
But you also made the point that like if they didn't open it on a Lovecraft quote and you didn't know anything else about the movie, which I didn't, would you even be in your head? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, but that's just because like over the last year or two, I've been reading a lot of that stuff, so that's why it appealed to me more, I think, because I've been kind of deep into that kind of stuff lately.
To me, it's
I know
like
none of these things.
To me, it's like it's too many threads that are. I don't know. I just think there's a way to do an ambiguous movie that feels cleaner than this. You know what I mean? Because they bring up threads and suggest that they're important. Like the math equation is a perfect example.
Yeah,
like that's a thread that they hit 4 times throughout the movie that goes literally nowhere, and it's so infuriating. I think like if you're I don't know, if you want to do something like that, you can't bring something up like that and clearly foreshadow and then not
Yeah.
have it pay off, I guess is my point.
Yeah, you're not wrong. This movie, I'm not saying this movie is like amazing or like flawless or anything. That stuff like that math equation is definitely a problem because, like you said, they revisit that a number of times. There's no payoff with it, so that is disappointing. But as far as the ending itself, there is definitely threads left dangling. I'm just saying for that kind of story, that's kind of a typical kind of ending.
It's funny, like not knowing anything about the movie, it ends and the credits come up, and I see there's only one writer on it, which I feel like is really rare these days. Even indie.
Well, that's the older brother.
Well,
He's
yeah.
the
Even indie movies, right? Like have a couple people come in and take passes, and it feels like the kind of movie to me that suffered for only having one writer. Like it needed somebody to come and be like, "Yo, bro, this needs to be like cleaned up a little bit." Because I actually disagree in the runtime. I feel like it was by the time it was over, I'm like, Jesus Christ, guys, let's like bring it on home here, you know? let's wrap it up.
I mean, I don't know. Like on the flip side, I think the story is kind of impressive for just one person writing it.
Well, that's the thing. Is like it is very low budget, and you can tell that by, and that's sort of what I mean by like it's ambitious, but they're kind of overshooting their means a little bit. Like you can tell that visually that this was shot on the cheap, and still has these cool set pieces and moments that they put together. So I think like I don't know, like they're being so ambitious, and I do want to give them credit for that 100%. But I think that's also what, for me, gives me like this high bar that I'm holding them to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It does have, I don't know, like a low budget feel, but on the other hand, I feel at no point while watching this did I think like, oh wow, this is like a low budget B movie. Like I thought the set was great. Like I thought the locations that they used for this were perfect. There was no sort of gratuitous like CGI in any parts. Like I thought it felt like a decently budgeted film to me.
I think it was the acting. I think it was the acting to me, and it's interesting finding out that the two brothers are the filmmakers because like I don't think they're super good actors. Like the older brother is good at looking smoldering, but that's about all he's
Sure
got
is.
in the bag of tricks.
See, I don't know. Like, I was shocked to find out that the guy was the writer and they both were the directors because I thought they were really good in this.
Yeah.
Like, I was surprised that they also had like their hand in actually creating this.
I think I might have watched a different movie.
It really sounds like you might have.
Here's what I really want to know. When you go, I mean, like this cracked me up like moments because I feel like we're at an impasse here with just me not liking it and you guys liking it, which is fine. So let's like get into some of the specific stuff. It cracked me up that like, first of all, I didn't really buy that the older brother would ever go back to like you escaped a cult.
Yeah.
It's basically prison, right? Like if you escaped prison, you don't go back. But okay, I get the setup is that he wants to kind of placate the little brother and make him see the reality so they can move on. But he's like supremely uncomfortable there from minute one. Like he's eyeing everybody, he's grilling everybody. He's real nervous. He doesn't want to be there. And then 5 minutes after getting there, he goes to his brother, "All right, I'm going to go for a run." I'm just like, is that something you do in a place you're that uncomfortable with? Just like get into your like workout clothes and go for a run,
Well, here's the problem I also had. Like it's
Cracked me up.
I don't know like specifically where it is, but it's got to be somewhere around like outside of San Diego because they show like the those giant domes, like the boobs.
Yeah,
from Naked Gun.
that cracked me up. They're like, "Hey, the boobs."
Yeah. So I gotta imagine it was like 300 degrees where they were, and he decides to go for a jog. Like that was my bigger problem. That like, what the hell are you doing? It's like middle of the day.
He runs the next
Isn't
day.
it-
He runs the next day too. I'm like, damn, man, this guy will not let his training regimen go.
I mean, I guess you
And
gotta
I'm
do
not
it.
being a smartass here, but isn't it like 75, 80 degrees year round in San Diego?
Like God knows where they are. They were in a desert. That's all I know. Like
Yeah.
there's no real desert in San Diego, so they had to be.
That's
I don't
true.
know.
It just cracked me up.
So
The other thing is, Joe,
Really quick, I want to be the contrarian to your contrarian, Eric, because I feel
that's not
like
how that works.
I feel like to me it felt totally believable that he would agree to go back because I think people, I mean, I have never been in a cult. I cannot speak to what that experience would be like, but that so much of being in a movement like that is about someone being able to get control over you. And I feel like if they've been out long enough, the older brother feels like he knows what they're about. He knows what they're going to do to try to trick him into staying. And I think he feels like, okay, well, I can go back and I'm not going to fall for their,
But they
shit.
they
and
just
then we can leave. Like then he'll see everything I saw and we can leave. you
But
know.
the movie just finished making it a point to tell me that it will take your entire life to deprogram you after you're in a cult. Right? Like you're already like they've already established that how vulnerable you'll always be when you've been indoctrinated like that. So I picture like Scientology. Like you hear these stories about how scary Scientology is, like, and then you go back. Whatever. I mean, listen, you're not going to sway me on this one, so we can just move on. It's fine.
But didn't they give us an answer to that though?
I'm just being
towards
honest.
the end of the movie.
I mean, I got the impression that this wasn't a culty cult. Like it didn't seem like there was any tension when they're left.
No,
I
but
think
that's at the end. By the end of the movie, it's totally 100%. But in the beginning of the movie, all the information you have, the brother makes it sound like this was just the sickest, worst place ever, the older brother. So then for them to immediately just go to like, all right, we'll go back. And then, totally, once the plot develops, you see it's not quite what you think it is. Even though, again, like another thread that's never picked up on is he says, the brother's like, oh, I can't even imagine the leader guy being mad. And the older brother's like, oh, I can. And they cameras on him, and it's like this big moment where he says it. And then you're like, you never see him mad for the rest of he's like, at one point, he's mildly frustrated at himself. You know what I mean? Like, he's not even mad at the brothers. And so...
But we're in spoiler
the
territory.
older brother
here.
can picture him being mad. Like, I think that's just
it's just funny.
a valid statement.
Oh,
Since
you
we're in spoiler
will.
territory here. Maybe I misunderstood what was going on, but then after that, like that scene when he's talking about the leader getting mad and stuff like that, didn't they have like a whole reveal that the older brother had made the entire story up about the death cult and the mass suicides and stuff? And then the other guy said you just couldn't handle that there was no leader and there never was a leader.
I understand it zero of any of that part of the plot. Like,
Yeah.
Did they
I'll
leave?
agree with you.
Like,
I had no idea.
Here's what I didn't understand. Did they leave the house and then tell the outside world that that's what all that bad stuff? But like,
I think so.
What the tape where they're dressed up in the shirts, but then that was fake. Like, did they? What the hell was that's? I didn't understand any of that whatsoever. Which is part of what left me just being like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean that's fair. It's like I said, I could have completely misread that too. I took it though as older brother was lying to younger brother to get him out of there because he didn't want to be there anymore, and then it was because they kind of lived in this commune without a leader, and the older brother, because the guy that we thought was the leader is like, you couldn't handle that there wasn't a leader, you had to be the leader, and that's what made you stand out. So he took off because he didn't get his way, is the way I understood it.
Let's talk about some of the set pieces that we liked, because otherwise it's just going to be you guys arguing with me for the whole show. What are some of the kind of like moments that we liked?
I mean, I love we get to this part where the like crazy guy that you had mentioned, Eric, wants to get a gun. So the older brother goes to this different cabin where there's the tweaker that they call him. Like, when we encounter those guys, there's this guy pretty much chained to like a radiator in a house, and his best friend is there trying to get him off meth or God knows what. Like, those two, and that's what I was talking about at the beginning. Like, there's this weird sort of comic relief.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that part is really sort of the height of it. Like, all of a sudden, like, you get to this part where there's been this tension of like, what the hell's actually going on here, and that's where just after we kind of like spill the beans on like, they're all trapped in these like weird sort of time bubbles and blah, blah, blah. Like that, I really enjoyed that scene because it was these two guys and they were like a little lighthearted and they had obviously been stuck there and they realized what's going on. And I feel like that's what two, like, you know, if like two of us were trapped in this thing, like you're kind of just like chalking it up to this is fucked up. Like we have to figure out how to get out of here. But like it was, in a weird way, like this is gonna sound strange, but like relatable as to like how I would react if I was stuck in this sort of thing.
You know what?
Yeah, well, they're very frank about it. Like, especially that Mike guy. He's just like, "Look, don't get stuck here. This is what's happening. It's kind of sucks."
You know, like the one thing they do pay off in this movie is when those dudes, the one guy's, they're talking about looping again, and he's like, "Oh God damn it! If I have to walk up to this house and hear you say, hey man, one more time, like I'm gonna kill myself," and then when time loops, it happens. Like you don't know what he's talking about, but then when time loops, you see it happen in real time. That was brilliant. Like that was maybe my favorite moment in the movie. And I don't want to undersell either the other dude, because to me the other dude is my favorite. Like when he shows up, and again, like the movie is just at a point where it really needs a kick in the pants, and that guy is like just comes up fired up, full of piss and vinegar out of that shack, and I felt
was.
like I felt like that was a random dude who was actually stuck in a time bubble, and they just shot him. Like that didn't seem like a person.
Well, and just really quickly for a point of clarity, so I mentioned earlier that Resolution kind of wraps into this movie. So Resolution is about those two guys in the shack.
Oh.
See that? I think
And
if I had known that, that would definitely have been even more interesting. But without it, it was still.
yeah, exactly. Well, I'm really glad to hear that still paid off, even if you didn't know that background.
I mean, it's
because
certainly weird.
I sort of watched it feeling like, oh, I feel like people who haven't seen Resolution are going to feel like very confused in a bad way. But
Well,
as long as they,
it's totally
that was a
random.
satisfying addition.
It's totally random, and the tone is crazy. But I just, for whatever reason, it works. I just think because it's fun. You're definitely like, well, what the hell is that?
Yeah,
Another one-
so the original movie Resolution is about those two guys, and it starts like how their loop starts, right? Where the friend Michael shows up and he's trying to help his friend detox and go cold turkey, so he handcuffs him, and things start to go weird from there. And it's been a while since I watched it. I think they start getting into weird like manipulation of time and looping towards the end of the movie. But it also, like this one, kind of leaves a lot of stuff pretty open-ended as far as explaining what's going on.
Another part I thought was real clever, Eric, along the same lines of that scene with those two at that cabin with the tweaker and his buddy Mike, and Mike saying how if he had to hear him, say hi to him when he showed up and get one more time, he's going to freak or whatever, is when you go back to the other crazy guy that wanted the gun to the point where he finally got the gun. And you know what he's going to do with the gun and everything. You know what it's leading up to, and then they kind of pan off to the side and looking at his motorcycle. And you hear the gunshot, you hear the blood splatter, and then they underscore it with hearing him in the background kick open that barn door and say, "God damn it!"
Yeah, and it's crazy too because he's basically been comic relief up until that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, welcome to the show.
Oh, wow.
What did you think of this movie?
We were just getting to shenanigans.
Was it all about
Oh
me?
God, we're stuck in a time loop. It's 2009 again.
Hello.
Hey-o. I thought this movie was like my favorite Southbound short. You guys remember that movie? It was, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. It's like very, very obtuse. And Eric, I don't know if you guys have brought it up, but you said it was a little fart smelly. I didn't find it to be particularly pretentious.
I didn't
but
say that on the show yet, but I did say that in the email. You're right.
Yeah, but I kind of disagree on that, but it's like, it's definitely, I feel like there's a couple pieces that could have been put in this movie that would have made everything make a little bit more sense. And have it been like just less obtuse, I guess, overall.
Yeah. I did enjoy the
funny stuff. The funny stuff was great.
I didn't. Yeah, that's kind of what we were just talking about. I really liked the effect of the visual effect of the bubbles, and there's a couple cool moments like when he goes to walk away at the end and she's just on the other side and they can't see each other. I almost wish there was like a little more of that stuff, but that was pretty neat.
I thought the effects overall were really cool.
Yeah, I really liked I liked the setup in the tent. Although, like with the old timey tent, I feel like I don't know, the repeating record's a little cliched for me at this point, but it was effective. I just would have liked a little more meaning out of it. It's kind of more just
tiptoe through the tulips playing.
It's just, I mean, it's just kind of a like, oh, that's weird, but it doesn't really affect anything. You know what I mean?
It was almost like a room in a haunted house, when you
Totally.
like walk by the glass and
Totally.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked the set piece. A couple things that I liked visually. The bit where they go out into the middle of the lake because the older brother has been told that there's something that he has to find at the bottom of the lake, and they end up finding they find a Polaroid. Is that right?
No, they found the videotape.
Yeah.
They find a videotape.
Yeah, like
But
the picture thing, the videotape thing, like.
I really like that visual of when he comes up out of the water and he's freaking out, and they just pan out and it's this huge overhead shot of the lake. They use that in the trailer and I found it super effective. But I wanted to know what you all thought, because I feel like, I don't know if this was a part that worked for you or didn't work for you, Eric. I really liked all of the weird set pieces around the monster in the woods, like them pulling on that rope that was just attached to nothing in the darkness I thought was super effective and well done.
Yeah.
Yes, except like from a plot standpoint, the point of like the ritual they're doing like isn't really explained. So I'm just like, even though it's kind of an interesting tension because it's going out in the dark. I'm like, what the fuck? Why are they doing this? And then,
It's tugging practice.
but even the guy
Yeah.
says like, oh, it's whatever on a ladder. So there wasn't like that much. I don't know. Again, I just think like, I just don't think this thing's directed very well. So some of these moments that could have been more effective weren't for me.
You shut your mouth though.
Joe, here's my most important question of the show. If they were
Yeah.
to brew their own Hefeweizen, would it be clear like that? I guess, could they filter? Like, wouldn't it be thicker?
I was so baffled by the beer because there was
It's like Coors Light, and they're like, oh, I brewed my own, like,
yeah, it was a weird color. There was no carbonation to it, and at no point did I see any sort of refrigeration. Like they're all just like hanging outside by a campfire with kegs sitting around with like no ice or anything.
I mean,
So
that is how
are
they
it's
drank
like-
in the old-timey days, I assume.
Well, it seems like they're just drinking like warm, flat beer, and they
Yeah,
make
it's
a
super
point to-
European.
Well, they make it a point to say that like this is how our livelihood here. That's what we make money off of. Like, no one's
Yeah.
paying money for that garbage.
Every
Like,
time it came up, I'm like, this doesn't look right, Joe. They could.
How does that work with the time loops too?
well, that's the other, like that's what I was asking
That's
over
a-
email. Like,
Holy
who picks
crap.
it up? Like,
Yeah.
how do they get it out?
That
Like,
was how do they go sell
I
it?
think maybe they cut a scene where it's like a beer delivery guy who comes to pick up the kegs and gets stuck in like a 10-minute loop.
Mark,
Yeah.
you just blew this thing wide open, buddy.
Either that or the beer guy just shows up in the woods and finds magic beer cases sitting out and leaves cash for the beer
like, yeah.
parents.
Like that was like, how do they actually interact with the outside world if they're trying to get this out? Because not to like spoil the ending, but like they kind of make it a point that like they're looking off fondly at these. Well, I guess we've kind of spoiled the ending. at
Well,
this
the
point anyway.
outside
Like,
world can come to them, right? Because the dudes come to them. But
like,
can you get out?
How do they get out? Well, it's weird too. So not to get like too deep into this, but like they make it a point that a lot of the characters are talking to the older brother of like, don't get caught here. Like, but we don't really understand how you do and don't get caught in the loop.
Right.
So like, how do some people come? How do they go? Like, I don't know. It's very strange. Like there are a lot of unanswered questions.
This is kind of what I
so,
mean.
yeah.
Like, it's focusing on shit like the math equation when it should just be more explaining a little bit more about what the hell's happening.
Yeah. Or like
mean-
stuff they didn't need to put it. Like they didn't need to put the math equation in there. Like they could have left it out, and that would have been perfectly.
This is
fine.
really esoteric, but it's like this is kind of how I look at movies that are sort of ambiguous and trippy and confusing. It's just an ambiguous feeling that I get. Like sometimes I watch these movies and I think the person making this is so smart that I don't understand this movie. And like
Yeah.
and
that.
I just didn't feel that here. Like other times, like in this, I'm more like, no, they were going for this and it kind of like didn't super work. You know what I mean? It's why I can't really truck with David Lynch most of the time, because I feel like David Lynch is doing stuff to be weird and he doesn't really give a shit if any of it has any continuity, right?
It's-
I think they were trying to make this make sense, but I'm just not sure they
It's-
nailed it.
It's an interesting point because that movie I was talking about at the top of the show with the time travel is called Primer, and like
Oh,
I've watched that movie like 3 or 4 times, and like I appreciate what they did, but like they go deep into like the theory behind time travel and completely loses me every time. And it's like super interesting, but like way over my head. And it's funny that you mentioned that because it does have like a similar sort of vibe. Like maybe I'm just missing something here and I'm not like picking up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of. I think they're trying to drop hints between like the crazy guy and the tweaker and his buddy, and the two brothers and everything, because they're all in different time loops, and they kind of point that out with the dude in the old timey tent and everything. They're all in different length of time loops, I should say, that they've been stuck there. So they're trying to drop hints, like maybe you could guess that the brothers have been gone for 10 years, so that camp's loop is somewhere in the 9 to 10 year range, and they got out before because the crazy guy told them you have to get out before the reset happens or you're stuck forever. But it's not clear at all. And that kind of leans towards the length of the movie being a bit of an issue because it goes on long enough that you kind of lose out on all those hints that they are giving you to try and put it together in your own head.
Are you guys secretly starting to agree with me?
Oh, I mean, I don't
No.
disagree with anything you're saying. I just
No.
think I appreciate the finer points of it more than you do.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I kind of want to watch this first movie that Sophie hated if it's all those dudes in a cabin.
I know, me too.
I would be super interested to hear if you all like it, because again, it's been a long time since I saw it, but if I remember correctly, it is not going to have like the fun comedy frankness that you liked about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see weird indie shit unless we do it for the show, if I'm being perfectly honest. So it's probably not going
All
to
right, so you heard it here first. The guys are going to do resolution next week for
There you
the
go.
show.
Well, hey, I don't know if it's going to be next week, but I just did add it to the list because I think it'd be worth talking about at least.
I'd like to talk about Mark's shirt tonight. You look great.
Mark.
Don't you work remote, Mark? Like, why are you all gussied up?
Important to the air that I give off. You know, I gotta get my shit together.
Also, he lives in Florida.
Gotta get it right and get it tight.
He's in Florida, Joe. In my experience, when you move to Florida, all you wear are polo shirts and like Hawaiian shirts, which you just acquire somehow and you don't know how.
True.
Literally
They
this
were
week.
in my closet when we bought the house.
I think it was last week, and the wife and I were at Target, and I was buying a new pair of shorts, and she's like, "I think you need to get like a nice shirt with this." And we were looking at polos, and I was about to pick one up, and like I had like a breakdown in front of her, like, "I don't think I'm ready for this. I can't do this." Like, and we just had to walk away.
Like I
Also
remember
been,
moving.
wearing a lot of Henley t-shirts.
I remember
You guys know?
moving back from Florida and then out here and just being like, none of these clothes translate to the Northeast. Just does not work. So there you go. Would you recommend The Endless, Mark?
Sure.
Sophie?
I don't think I would blanket recommend it, but to people who enjoy genre films and have a tolerance for indie stuff, I would definitely recommend it. Probably not to you, Eric, but to other folks.
Casey?
I would recommend it.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm not gonna explain myself. I would recommend this.
If you like weird time loopy stuff, I would recommend a movie called Triangle, which we did on the show years ago, and is legit incredible.
It's like a decade ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that movie's great.
It's an amazing
think-
movie, and I think does this way better. So I would recommend that.
No, I think that was one of my first, if like maybe I guessed it or something, but I think I was on that show, and I think you guys were wrong because that movie was garbage.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for The Endless. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Remember those idyllic scenes out of your childhood? Crisp winter nights, sleigh bells, crackling Yule logs? Remember those? Remember them well? After Black Christmas, they'll never be the same again. Black Christmas. If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight.
Rated R.
Hi, this is Adrienne Barbeau, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Joe, breaking news this week we haven't been able to talk about on the show yet.
Oh,
Shudder is going to bring Joe Bob Briggs back.
I am so excited for this. More excited than I thought I would be.
Later this year, which, I mean, it's got to be Halloween, right? When else would you do it?
Yeah.
When else would you do it?
We could
I
hope.
mean,
Can you guys explain to me exactly what this is? I'm
So-
gonna show my baby age.
Okay, so are you familiar with Monster
I'm so
Vision?
glad I'm here for this.
Are you familiar with Monster Vision? Okay, so Joe
Are
Bob.
you familiar with the idea of horror hosts? Like Elvira and
Vaguely, I've heard of Elvira.
Wow. So
You
wow.
shut-
I did not.
Shut your
I did
Holy
not play
shit.
with horror stuff at all when I was.
All right,
young,
let me
so-
back
you
it
were
up.
going out
So
dating people and having fun.
So a horror host is somebody who kind of gets on typically on like cable TV or like local channels. A lot of times back in the day had horror hosts, and sometimes they were goofy. They dress up like a friggin' werewolf or something. And you intro the movie. Sometimes they do little skits. Sometimes you give like trivia. And Joe Bob Briggs' first show was in the 80s, and he's kind of like this I don't know, rednecky kind of character. And his shtick was that he knew a lot about the movies. He was way into the drive-in scene. So Joe, we were talking. I actually was on YouTube today watching a bunch of old. I think it's called Joe Bob at the Drive-In or something. It was on the movie channel in the 80s, and that shit was wild. So literally, I didn't realize this, but at some point, they were filming that in like a basement studio in New York City, like a couple blocks from Times Square, like back when Times Square was like real grungy.
Well, wasn't that where what they used to
Back
call
when
those-
New York had chuds.
Totally.
What they call those line of movies that came out of that era in New York?
I do not know.
Grindhouse.
Grindhouse. Yeah. Like, so anyway, so then TNT, so then the Horror House became big with cable channels because cable channels started buying all the rights to these old movies because they needed to fill time. And sometimes you could just get crappy horror movies and these people would sort of make it fun, you know? So Joe Bob Briggs was on TNT through almost the whole 90s on a show called Monster Vision. It would air either Friday or Saturday nights. And then every commercial break, sometimes, I think it was just before the segments, he'd get on and he'd tell trivia about the movie and tell funny stories. He'd get into weird political rants, usually about Bill Clinton because it was the 90s. He was just goofy and funny and whatever. Yeah. And I grew up watching it every single week. Like that was like my thing that I did every weekend.
And his stories were usually good because he's actually, you know, pretty good friends and knows a lot of these people that worked in that film industry throughout those eras and stuff. So he's got a lot of good, like, really inside details.
Well, right. And like before IMDb, that was the way you learn shit about movies. Like he knew shit about, he knew stuff about actors and actresses you would only know from like IMDb or something. So
I honestly, I probably maybe watched like a few episodes of Monster Vision, but I mostly know it from the commercials because I used to watch wrestling on TBS when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, man.
So
I grew up watching it. Like a lot of time, like no joke, like Saturday nights, your brother would come over and we'd have like sleepover, and we would watch Joe Bob on the movie channel. And like I remember watching like Frankenhooker with him and a handful of other movies.
Yeah, and there was they were usually B movies. Like today I was watching an old one from the 80s where they're doing, you know, like Malibu Express and like shit like that.
I just have like such great memories of like growing up and like watching like just like shitty horror movies on like a Friday night with my brother, but then like as I got like a little bit older watching Joe Bob on like a Saturday night, like in the middle of the night. Like it's just we talked about it last week. Like it brought back like all the feels when I started watching it.
Tons of
nostalgia. Well, it has like it has this sort of similar appeal to something like Mystery Science Theater, which I did actually watch a lot of, where it was like not so much, you know, now everything's on demand, and in that world I found Mystery Science Theater to be like, not like boring, but like part of the joy of it was that you were stuck watching whatever it was, but you had someone to like help you through it and make it entertaining. Whereas now it's like, you know, like the idea of like MST3K on demand feels weird to me because I'm not like, I never want to watch any of these shitty movies on purpose. Like I want to be,
I used to watch that
and be surprised by how bad it is.
Yeah, I used to watch that hungover.
Enjoy the commentary that goes
like I used to watch MST3K like hungover on a Sunday morning because nothing else was on that I could. Like,
exactly. Like it's a different time. Like you watch it on Netflix and there's just like. There's such a reality that you can jump to something else because this is kind of boring.
This has turned into a total old man rant. But the point being that Shudder decided to people have been like petitioning channels and stations. Are you still there, Sophie?
Yes, I am.
Hi. Okay. People have been.
And I am legitimately super riveted.
Okay, cool. So people have been like petitioning for years to like bring him back. You know, like, and I think. It's most people just figure, well, it's never going to happen. He's in his 60s now, you know, and whatever. He's written columns on movies for years. Joe Bob in particular, Sophie, you may not like. He's not the most woke dude. Like he's not. He I would call him an ally, but I would say that he, like this new version, there was still some language that was a little like. Eyebrow raising to me, but if you go back and like he's come so far from like the 80s because I was watching some shit today and was like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. But Like he's a little retrograde in that way, but I think he means well, and he seems like a sweet guy. But he like, so Shudder brought him back, and the idea was, what I think it was they figured, like, I think they did some testing, because I know Casey got an email like from Shudder asking like, hey, are you interested in Joe Bob Briggs? And I think they convinced their corporate overlords like, let's bring him back and do one stream one night. We'll see if there's interest. And so they set up a 24-hour stream, started Friday the 13th at 9 p.m. and went through to like 11 the next night. And
in reality, started at like 11:30.
Well, yeah, we went over that last week too. There were some technical difficulties, but the demand was like way over the top, crashed the website. So within a week, Shudder came out and announced, "Hey, we're going to bring him back again," because I think they saw what they needed to see, that the interest was totally there, and they were running free trials, so I'm sure they got a ton of new sign-ups from people who like just wanted to see him, and so they finally came out this week and were like, "Hey, we're bringing it back." Mark pointed out to me today that I may be approaching obsession level, because I've been like every day on YouTube, I'm watching old episodes, I'm like reading about the people that were on the show on Wikipedia. It's just fascinating.
Can I read the actual text that you said?
Sure.
Give me a second, I gotta find it.
I can tell you exactly what it said.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Well, somehow I was curious about, like, so he used to have the male girls in the show would like come on and read letters, and he would always get letters from prisoners that watched the show. And anyway, one of them, Rusty, who was like I think the last one before they canceled it. She's
Can I?
She's a lawyer now.
Exact thing, because it's funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
Out of nowhere today at 1:11 p.m. Not talking about, this was out of the blue.
By the way, I'm at work.
Right, for sure. The last thing we talked about 2 hours earlier was wrestling, so this is a complete non sequitur. A thing I just discovered: one of Joe Bob's old male girls, Rusty, is now a lawyer. She was on TV every week in the 90s, and now she's a lawyer. Life's weird, man. So,
yeah,
if you ever want to know what my conversations with Eric are like, it's shit like that all day at like probably 2 hour intervals, just like random.
And it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know. Like I was watching the Pieces commentary, because I didn't catch the end of his. Pieces was the last movie he did, and like
smoke pot and fuck on a waterbed.
Oh my god! Like he talks about that, and then like so the like intro to it is just like 15 minutes of him giving a history on like sort of the horror host, and like he gives this breakdown of this guy John Zackerly. I'm probably saying his name wrong.
No,
but, like,
Zackerly's right.
And like at a certain point, like Joe Bob actually gets like choked up, and you can see him like holding back tears, and like legit, I'm watching this at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday, like about to bawl my eyes out, because it's like bringing back such nostalgia.
No, and like I said last week, like I was watching it. You can, Sophie, they're all on Shudder. They put them up there. Like I was watching it when it happened, the Pieces one, and like he did that, and then at the end, he kind of gave this like super earnest, which is weird for him, heartfelt speech about getting to do this again, and like the connections he made with people over the years. And yeah, I was like super verklempt. But I think like Joe, even though I know I'm really nostalgic for it, I was like not prepared for the blast of nostalgia that it would give me.
Absolutely, 100%.
No lie, I have watched Basket Case twice in the last 2 weeks. That's 2 more times than I've seen it in my entire life.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like,
I agree. Like he's gotten me more like pumped up for like watching these old horror.
I've been watching random
random
movies.
Years, so.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like
I think it's a good natural bridge for Shudder too, because sometimes I just like I'll just like fire it up and be like, I don't know if I'm actually interested in any of this. You know what I mean? Like it just
it's a good hook for them to like have something to tie to Shudder. Like
I think doing it. I think even though it's good that I like they posted everything, but I think doing it as a one-off event was really the brilliant thing, because I didn't realize how much I missed like that type of thing where it's an event. It's an event, and it's like there's a communal thing. You're all experiencing it together, and like you're either there or you're not. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's great because it's the throwback, because you guys mentioned it earlier. We're in this digital age now where everything's on demand. You can find anything you hear about 5 minutes later to watch. Whereas when Joe Bob was in his prime, you didn't have that, and that's how you discovered a lot of that stuff. And it's just the blast of that to what it was like kind of growing up getting into this stuff, at least for me anyways. That's the exciting, that's the biggest nostalgia for me, because it's like, oh wow, I discovered so many movies this way. Like Frankenhooker. I would have never seen Frankenhooker if it wasn't for Joe Bob.
Yeah.
I remember Frankenhooker like being like an event. Like I remember Your older brother literally stayed over at my house that night because
you
we were
guys
looking forward to
must-
watching Frankenhooker for like 2 weeks.
You guys must have been young too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like early,
Too
like,
young for
not even
Frankenhooker.
teens. Yeah, it was a thing.
Yeah. So Sophie, I would encourage you to check it out. He did Reanimator, so there's some really cool Reanimator like trivia, and there's some other
Yeah.
stuff. There's some other stuff I'm sure you haven't seen, but I would love to hear your thoughts if you do jump in there.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank y'all.
Sure. Horror hosts.
Where the hell were
I mean,
we?
he was the only one I really ever got into.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
always
think,
watched
I think,
Elvira, but like, I don't know if I got that like weekly.
I think
Yeah.
Sven Gulli's still doing his thing. I see
Yep.
like newer screenshots popping up.
Well,
Well, he's
is-
got some pretty active Twitter followers out there when his shows start up. I think it's on Sunday nights.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah.
Like most of the ones now are so bootleg because they're just like little public access things, which I think is
yeah.
probably traditionally the way that most of them were. I think, if anything, Joe Bob was the anomaly in that he was on like a national cable channel every week. You know.
Well, he
Oh, yeah.
wasn't like wearing like cheesy makeup. Like he was just like a guy in a cowboy hat who had like a ton of knowledge about these movies. Whereas like Sven Gulli, like he serves his purpose, and I appreciate him for what he is. But like, it's just kind of like cheesy schlock. And
Well, it's
I
funny-
get that. Like it's
Right,
fun,
if you like
but,
didn't grow up in Chicago watching Sven Gulli and you like look up a picture of him, you're like, okay, I don't know.
Like what? yeah, whatever. Watching the movie channel version today, and realizing like, oh, this dude was like blocks away from Times Square. Suddenly, his like crazy drive-in movie knowledge, like B movie knowledge, makes total sense.
yeah, for sure. I mean, especially back then.
It's been I have been oddly energized since watching and just like Joe said, like checking out other. I've been able to because I'm energized. I've been able to push through a little bit of the choice paralyzation where I did never watch anything, and I've just been
Yeah.
hitting play on stuff. You know, so
And,
Eric,
like,
do you
the-
think you would have liked The Endless better if Joe Bob had covered it?
totally 100%.
Yeah, I mean that. What's that movie with the vampires that he did? Like that movie. That's kind of hard to get through, but like I watched the entire thing because I thought it was super
Because
entertaining.
even if it's bad, you know, within 20 minutes you're going to see him again, and he's going to tell you some weird thing about the movie.
He's gonna tell you he loves you.
Yeah.
It breaks
You
it up, so
snuggles.
it like makes it easier to get through it. You know.
Yeah. What was that movie? Like I can't remember the name, but like at a certain point I was like, do I actually like this or am I just waiting for him to come back? Like I don't know anymore.
Here's the secret, Joe. It's all the same.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. No email this week. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. But I'm sure that we have some tweets.
We do. We sure do. The first hashtag we use is BGH Classics. If you are a patron of the show, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror, you're listening to back episodes and we say something funny or terrible, tweet it to us with the hashtag BGH Classics and try and fit the episode in there if you can.
How about just funny?
Yeah, maybe not terrible. Yikes. Did I miss that conversation? Was that in the beginning of the show?
No.
No, we're just avoiding it. Okay, cool. First one is from Mi Corazon Mi Amor.
Mi corazón.
So I should say this is from the Google report because it's important context. The Google report was where I would read unsavory searches that landed on our site and rank them. So this is me reporting the Google report. How good is your penis? Casey said, well, if you must know, it's pretty fucking impressive. Jesus Christ. Episode 66, Last House on the Left. And with the screen cap, I don't think I actually watched the Last House on the Left remake, but it stars what's his face from Breaking Bad,
It's
the
pretty good.
guy that says bitch a lot.
It does
And,
not. It does? Are you
yeah.
sure?
Yes,
Weird.
unless Monica included the wrong picture.
Weird.
With,
No,
the,
he's in it.
what's his name?
You know what? I think when
Did I
I
see
saw
something?
that, I hadn't seen Breaking Bad yet. I think that's why I didn't.
Also the girl.
Guys, I had the distinctly unfortunate experience of being forced to watch that movie. I was on like the student programming board in college, and we were going to show that movie, the remake, and I had to go because it was my turn to man the event. And there was two dudes sitting behind me, and during the rape scene, the camera like cuts away. I don't know what it cuts to. It's like her hand or something. It's not showing the rape anymore. And the guy behind me goes, "Oh, come on."
Oh, boy.
It
Yikes.
was rough.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Yeah. He should have maybe been reported to counseling.
Hmm. making movie memories. This next one, also from me, Corazomia Moore. Jesus Christ. If you say pitcher instead of picture, I want to hit you in the head with a tack hammer.
That's me.
That was Eric,
Yeah.
obviously.
I don't think I've ever noticed anyone saying that.
Picture instead of
Kmart's?
picture. Probably is one that bothers me. What's the other one that drives me nuts? I'm asking my wife. She's sitting here.
What about when
Oh.
people say axe instead of ask?
No, that doesn't bother me. Pacifically instead of specifically is probably the one that makes me.
Specifically, I've never heard anyone say
Could
that.
you
I don't
be
know.
more Pacific,
Joe, it
please?
blows my mind because you live in the Midwest, and I feel like most of the people I've heard say that live in the Midwest.
I'll be honest, I tune out most of these slack-jawed yokels.
My wife just helped me out. The other one is when somebody says frustrated instead of frustrated.
Huh.
What? People say that?
All
That
the
I've heard,
time,
yeah,
dude.
actually.
I feel like you maybe pay attention to people
No,
talking to you more than I
You know
do.
who said that, Joe? Fessy the other night on Big Brother said frustrated.
Oh, well, he's a fucking idiot. You know what drives me insane? Like, this is my number one pet peeve. Stores that don't turn off the open sign when they close or they don't flip it over. Like, if I drive by a store that still has an open sign, but it's obviously closed, like, I want to, like, get out a cinder block and throw it through their front window, and I want them to burn and die.
Okay, that's different, but okay.
What if I want to go in?
It's,
You're not open, but your stupid fucking open sign is on, asshole.
What do I want to go in? What's the deal with that?
I'm just saying it's specifically.
Could you? Okay, cool. Now that we had that light shenanigans in there, beautiful. This next one's from Skizbot. Joe, in More Innocent Times. What the fuck are you guys talking about? Who the fuck is Lin Shaye? Episode 328, Unfriended.
Wow, Joe. Can you think about such an innocent time that you didn't know
Yeah.
who Lin Shaye was?
I like to think that the point of like any horror actor making it is when I know what your name is and what you look like.
Sure.
Oh my god. Wait a second. Did you guys happen to mention the Sinister or whatever story that came up for me this week?
What?
Because that's a story worth telling on the show.
Oh, I think
Oh my
mostly
God.
because none of us know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh
What
my
no,
God,
yeah,
this is-
are you talking about the grass?
Yes. Yeah. So quick
Come on,
aside, this
guys.
is somewhat related to emails. So we're having all this trouble with grass that we planted in the backyard, which is the least exciting part of the story.
Weed.
So I emailed the devil's lettuce. We planted some devil's lettuce.
Dude, you're living in Florida. You could grow some sick devil's lettuce down there.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, I emailed these people that were recommended to me and whatever. And I emailed two people, and the one response I got back, I will read in its entirety right now. Mark, from your signature block. So I have Bloody Good Horror in my email signature. So I wrote a huge diatribe about why our lawn's dying, and this is the response I got. Mark, from your signature block, I assume you may be interested in this tidbit. My friend and former neighbor, Bonnie Aarons, acts in horror films. Her latest is The Nun, to be released in September. She is the evil nun, a role that she is reprising from The Conjuring 2.
Okay.
That was the entire email. Not a goddamn thing about grass, but now I know that her friend was in The Nun.
Great.
And I hope that she's listening to this. Please tell me what I can do about my grass.
And if you are not a patron, you should consider becoming one, just so you can have the joy of signing on to Slack like I did and seeing a very, very, very long conversation about grass and what the nun might be able to tell you about fixing your grass.
Oh my god. Well, it seems that this woman too has played some other. She seems like a character actress. Like if they need like a lanky, scary person.
Please don't body shame her. All right, Mark.
Well, no, I mean that's just I'm saying that's she's
Not
like,
tonight, Mark.
She's gonna be in a movie where she's literally just a scary nun. She also played crackhead Bonnie in The Fighter, the bum in Mulholland Drive, and Baroness Joy von Trocken in The Princess
It's the
Diaries.
second time Lynch has come up tonight.
She's got range. That's what you're saying.
Yes. And apparently she's going to be in a movie called Wizard Dream, which I want to know what that's all about. Oh, and also a short called Nocturnally Yours.
Oh.
Yikes. Anywho, so that was my grass tidbit. Cool. Next, BGH Classics from me, Corazon Moore. Latrogenic effects would be those that are caused by fucked up doctory stuff. Schnarr's trying to further explain the word of the day, episode 99, House of the Devil.
House of the Devil.
Cool. Last one, BGH Classics. This is from B Jangles 23. Episode 323. I said, to be fair, none of us was dressing as slutty as we normally do when we go out. And Joe said, although I was wearing a Disneyland t-shirt. And this was us talking about how upset we were that we weren't getting hit on at a gay bar that we accidentally went to.
That's possibly one of my favorite Mark memories of when Mark and I accidentally went on a gay date at a gay bar before seeing Andrew WK.
Delicious wings. Fantastic wings.
They were the best wings I've had.
Cool.
Great service. Cool. Okay. So we also use the hashtag AskBGH. If you have a question, tweet it with the hashtag AskBGH, and we will do our best to answer. This one is from That Baseball Joe. Is it weird that Schnars is running for governor in Michigan?
Dude, this picture, dead on Schnars.
You want me to send it so you can put it in the feed?
Sure.
Oh yeah, do that.
I was pretty happy with this facsimile. I mean, I'm just happy that like still 5 years later, people are still sending me pictures when they think they see somebody who looks like Schnars.
Yeah, this one does look like if like 10 years from now John decided to run for governor.
Well, I think Joe's got a good. It's also a little Niles Crane.
Niles
like if
Crane,
Schnars and Niles Crane had a baby, it would look like this.
You know what it is, Eric? So when you say someone looks like Schnars, it's tough to find someone with his distinct hairline, and I feel like this person really
the
nails
hair on this Schnars in particular is like dead on. Schnars doesn't really have the butt chin that this guy has, I don't think, but there.
But what about the butt?
The hair is dead on.
What in the butt?
What?
David Hyde Pierce from Saratoga, New York.
Beautiful.
Just a heads up.
Wow.
Wonderful in the fall. Charming town. All right, next one is from Straight Chilling with an 8. I feel the same way as Joe about potentially never seeing Tom Waits live. He's my favorite songwriter. Joe, what's your favorite Tom Waits record and/or song?
Oh man, my wife and I, our first dance was to Jersey Girl at our wedding, so that one always gets me in the feels.
That's adorable.
Oh, beautiful. Small Change is probably my favorite Tom Waits album, but like, I don't know, like I love everything he does. Like it legit, like every time I listen to him, I get sad that I'll potentially never see him live. It's a thing.
Way to bring the show down, guys.
Cool, good answer. Next one is from Skizbot. This is a very serious and important question. Which animal form of gummy is the best animal form of gummy, bear or worm?
Get the fuck out of here with that. It's obviously bear.
So I have to give a shout out to Monica here because when we were at the BGH 10 year, she gave my boyfriend Jeremy a bag of Haribo Twin Snake gummies. Have you guys had those before?
No.
My boyfriend is aficionado of gummies, and they are now his favorite kind of gummies, and we buy them frequently. And so I have told Monica several times, thank you for introducing him to this. If you've not had them, I'd give them a shot. It's pretty good.
I'm a fan of an old-fashioned dub.
It looks like 2 gummy worms stuck together.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
I don't know. I prefer a peach ring. Are you familiar?
Yeah, well. Oh, it's newfangled.
Swedish Fish is pretty nice, but bear still beats it out.
Fish
Oh, yeah. Bear, the original. That's.
I don't know. I'm gonna go worm on this one.
You're a fucking asshole.
Guys, follow-up question. What is the worst color of gummy bear?
They all taste the same, don't they?
They're all fine. Yeah.
What? No, they don't all taste the same.
They do by the handful.
Once you hit 40, everything tastes the same.
The correct answer is yellow. Lemon gummy bears are gross. Okay.
What kind of fancy-ass, differently flavored... all the gummy bears I've ever had just taste like sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like and a little bit of bear.
Like
what did you do to your
Jell-O.
mouths when you were small?
We don't want to know.
Don't answer that question.
I don't have enough time to get into that. So
Smoke them if you got them.
Philadelphia, the 90s. Oh, we should move on.
Okay, cool. Next one. Also, Skizbot. Who would win in a no-holds-barred fist fight to the death? Bill Nye, Mr. Wizard, or Beekman?
Oh, Mr. Wizard's
Mr.
dead,
Wizard
right?
seems like, I mean, not now, but Mr. Wizard seemed like the kind of dude who used to get in bar fight. Like that seems like a dude who would he seems all mild mannered, but then he'd whip out a knife and take you down.
Yeah, that guy is definitely drinking some scotch in his
like
day.
my point being, like Mr. Wizard is like Greatest Generation.
Ever seen a video of Buzz Aldrin punching that conspiracy theorist guy in the head?
Yeah, exactly.
That's Mr. Wizard also.
I'm gonna go with Beekman because he could use that hair as a weapon.
I don't know. He's a fucking nerd. Like I feel like I feel like Bill Nye could kick his ass.
What about?
Oh, come on now. He has an edge to him.
What about Steve Brule?
Rules?
Yeah.
Where does he fall next?
If he's hopped up on sweet berry wine, he has the advantage.
Check it out, you dingus.
If in this world Mr. Wizard is still walking around, like absolutely Mr. Wizard.
Word. Okay. Dan, what should I be for Halloween?
John Schnars. Oh, all right.
Or Joe.
Whatever. One of us.
Anyone?
That would be good.
Perhaps you should be a twin snake gummy bear.
Oh.
No? No other ideas? You guys are done? Cool. Okay. Next one is from Shiver Me Tim's 13. Did you guys ever do a show on Resolution? If yes, which episode is it? If no, y'all really need to check it out.
I don't think
it's
so.
awesomely weird. I legit started jumping up and down in excitement when the characters from Resolution popped up out of nowhere in The Endless.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's probably not gonna happen at this point because we missed it. But there you go.
Casey put it on the list.
Damn it, Casey.
It's on the list, guys.
Like Eric ever remembers the list.
That's true. No, I look at the list now. I actually have the link saved.
Do you have my kiss on that list?
No, it's on my private list, Joe.
My kiss is on your list?
Yes.
Because your kiss is on my list?
Joe, were you here last week?
Yeah.
You were here. Okay, keep going, Mark. Let's wrap it up. Keep her moving. Did I put the first Purge on my top 10? I did, right?
Oh, no. I don't know if we've looked at your top 10 in a while.
I feel like we did, but I just can't remember.
I'll look it up while we're
Thank
wrapping
you.
up here.
Mark. If you're talking, I can't hear you.
It's all right. Next one from Freddie NOTLP. Do you think the other end of that rope was tied to Tony Robbins' belt loops?
He's lifting you up.
Yes.
It would have made just as much sense as whatever happened in the movie.
Sure.
Raise me up.
Next one was tagged as an Ask BGH or an Ask F and BGH in this case. It's from Drop Your Linen. Does it ever end?
Thankfully, yes.
Yep. Next one's from JD Burge. Assuming Benson and Moorhead were given an actual budget one day, what's a franchise or reboot you'd want to see them do?
None. I'd rather just see them keep doing their own thing.
Ghoulies.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, there you go. No, we do not have the first Purge anywhere in your top 10 list.
Okay. What's my top 5 right now?
So right now you have, in this order, Annihilation, Terrifier, Hereditary, Unsane, They Remain, Strangers Pray at Night, A Quiet Place. And then at the bottom you have The Ritual and Cloverfield.
Oh, They Remain, yeah. Wow, okay. Put it after They Remain for now. And bump whatever's under that.
Okay. Oh, by the way, we watched Unsane over the weekend, and Leslie hates your guts.
Why, did she not like it?
No, neither one of us did.
Oh, I thought it was great.
No, you're wrong.
Cece almost left the theater because she was having a panic attack.
Really? No.
Okay, it's cool. You can be wrong.
Okay, cool. Next one for me, Corazon Mia Moore. It's National Tequila Day. Who's doing shots?
I do love a margarita.
No one. Are you crazy?
Gonna roll that back, Joe?
I love a margarita.
Oh, thank you. Good. Even better the second time. Cool. Next one is also from me, Corazon Mia Moore. Does the BGH crew get loads of fan art and gifts? I'd like to think you get tons of gifts like some other shitty podcasts, but you guys actually deserve it.
Oh, thanks. We have.
I did have a listener recently gift me the shower with your dad simulator on Steam.
Yeah,
What?
me too.
I saw that.
Yeah, I
What
got
is
that one as
this?
well. We've had a friend. We don't get showered in gifts, but we have gotten some really
we
cool
don't get
gifts.
showered with your dad.
We don't shower.
Yeah,
There's sorry, Sophie. There's a game that someone made called Shower with Your Dad Simulator, and literally all it is like a shell game, where it's like really old, like Atari style graphics, where it's like you see 3 people and a curtain comes down, and then you have to find your dad, and it keeps getting faster and more like disorienting.
Do.
Yeah.
We
we
I want
we
to- I
got
want to
really
shower that
awesome.
dad.
What's your
do?
dad like?
I want to meet
We
that
did get
dad.
really awesome Krampus bells one year for
We
Christmas.
did,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite gift memory will always be the mead that we got from some random listener that we immediately drank without even thinking that perhaps it could be poison.
Wasn't it JC?
That was from
Yeah,
that
he
was
was
from
at the-
JC.
He was at the time a random listener, but now a longtime
a
friend.
good friend.
Oh,
We also have the patron saint of BGH, one Mr. BC, who will, when somebody does something really stupid on a stream, he'll go back and make a GIF out of it for us. So
yeah.
I have a folder of those somewhere that I will throw on the stream occasionally.
Do.
I got a Lego Man Sasquatch from one of our listeners once too. That was pretty awesome.
I got worms.
Yeah, we got a bunch of gifts at the 10-year too, just random stuff that people brought us. That was really nice.
Yeah, I got Shower with My Dad Simulator, so got that.
What's your dad like?
I want to meet that dad. No, last one is from our very own Greensby. If you had to choose one 3-second interval from your life to live interminably, a la the prospector in the tent, which 3 seconds would it be?
Boy.
Oh God.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know.
I think so. At the 10-year reunion,
Mhm.
when so we had all kind of been like watching John all night because he was again progressively drunker, and there was a moment where I was sitting at the front desk at the theater still taking tickets, and John walked away, and I didn't see him for the rest of the night. I think that moment where he walked away and I didn't have to deal with him anymore, like those 3 seconds would be like potentially one of my happiest moments.
Huh.
Wow.
And Joe's not exaggerating either, because I remember showing up we got to the theater probably 5 minutes after you guys, and just the look on Joe's face as John was standing there talking to him at the table was priceless as we walked in.
So I think if we can narrow this down to our favorite John loop, I think the moment that he came out of the bathroom and told us that he clogged it at Horror Hound Weekend.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
That was pretty good.
If we're talking John loops, I would say, what's his name? The guy from Fright Night?
Oh,
You know,
Chris Sarandon, who was talking to him about basketball at Horror Hound.
Oh
And
no,
John-
that was the guy from Last House on
yeah,
the
it
Left.
was David Hess.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you go.
Right.
You know, it was more than 3 seconds, but the BGH trivia at the 10-year was like the most fun I've had in like literal years. So
Oh, yeah.
Even though you didn't win?
I don't recall that part of the evening.
Mhm.
that's really when all the booze took hold.
Yeah.
I would
That's when
just
the-
to stay on theme. I would really love to relive 3 seconds of when Eric and Andy were trying to convince John to not go out with the new class on the Friday night of BGH
Oh
10.
my god.
And Andy had been out there for a while trying to talk him into going to sleep, and Eric just opened the door and kind of went, "Come on, buddy, it's time to go to bed."
And he was like,
Amazing.
"Yeah, okay."
John, like, despite all of his messiness, like, he does have these moment of clarity. Like, I always think about at Mark's wedding, like, he looked like he was about to black out at a table, and I'm just like, we should probably go, right? And he's like, yes. And then he just got up and we left. Like, I don't think we even said goodbye to Mark and Jordan. I think we just left.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
It's fine. You weren't the first people to leave early, so you're good.
All right.
Cool.
What else
That's
we got?
it.
Oh,
We got nothing else.
All right.
music to my ears. Thank you to everybody who wrote in. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. We're also on Twitter with the hashtags AskBGH and BGH Classics. Don't forget, if you want to check out a live video stream of this show every week, check us out, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. You can also get access to all our back episodes and Slack, Mark. Where
hey.
else would you go on Monday morning to talk about Big Brother but our
Oh my
Slack?
god. It's honestly our Slack it's worth it. It's worth the price of admission.
Pretty much Big Brother ends and I'm like, okay, I gotta get on Slack and give my opinion on
There's a
this.
channel for fitness stuff, there's a channel for food, a channel for beer, a channel for house stuff, which is where all this grass business came up.
Where else would you learn about schnotz, Mark? The delicious,
Schnotz.
nutritious
Oh my God.
schnotz.
I'm getting ready to whip up my schnotz for tomorrow morning.
That's right. I gotta go get my schnutz ready for the morning.
This is great. This is a real thing, despite what you might think that we're talking
We're
about.
not going to tell you what it is. You're just going to have to become a patron and we'll add you to Slack.
Yeah.
And
So,
you too can join the cult of schnotz.
So what do you say, Mark? Next Sunday when you're here, are we going to go see Dark Web or whatever Sunday night?
Sure.
Okay. So maybe we will get that one in for next week.
All right.
So there you go. That's going to do it, guys, for the Endless. Hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll talk to you soon.
Adios.
Toodles.
Okay, bye now.
Bye-bye.